My name is Blanche, and I just turned 58 last month. I always thought the greatest gift I could give my daughter Amanda was independence, which is why I saved for years to buy her a beautiful house. What I never expected was that the same day I handed her the keys, her husband Derek would move his entire family in. I watched helplessly as my sweet daughter became a servant in her own home until one phrase changed everything. If you've ever felt powerless watching someone you love being taken advantage of, you'll understand why I had to act. Before I continue my story, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. Take a second to drop your location in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe to hear more stories about standing up for yourself and the people you love. The day my husband John died suddenly from a heart attack, Amanda was only 8 years old. With his insurance money quickly running out, I transformed myself from a part-time bookkeeper into someone who could provide for my daughter single-handedly. Night classes in finance while Amanda slept early mornings reviewing spreadsheets before school drop-offs, and weekends spent networking instead of relaxing, became my new normal. By the time Amanda started high school, I had secured a position as financial director for a mid-sized manufacturing company. The pay was good, the hours demanding, but predictable, and most importantly, it allowed me to be there for every school concert, parent-teacher conference, and teenage crisis. "Mom, you work too hard," Amanda would say, finding me at the kitchen table with budget reports at midnight. "I work just enough," I'd answer, which was our little joke. The truth was, I was building something bigger than just our day-to-day survival. Every bonus check, every raise, every dollar I could squeeze from our budget went into investments and savings accounts. I wasn't just planning for Amanda's college education. I was dreaming of giving her something substantial to start her adult life with. Amanda grew into exactly the kind of person I'd hoped she would become. Compassionate to a fault, with a warm laugh that could fill a room and a natural talent for seeing the best in people. Sometimes I worried her kindness made her vulnerable. She was always the friend who got stuck with the bill, the student who did the lion's share of group projects, the daughter who checked on me even when her own life was chaotic. "You need to think about yourself sometimes," I'd tell her. "I learned from the best, Mom." She'd reply pointedly, looking at my 60-hour work weeks. She met Derek Thompson in her junior year of college. He was studying business administration while she pursued interior design. Derek came from what he described as a typical middle-class family. His father, Frank, worked in insurance. His mother, Judy, was a school administrator, and his younger brother, Scott, was still figuring out his path. The first time Amanda brought Derek home for Thanksgiving, I was cautiously optimistic. He was polite, helped with dishes without being asked, and seemed genuinely interested in Amanda's dreams of designing spaces that combined beauty with functionality. He laughed at her jokes and looked at her with what I thought was respect and affection. Their wedding 3 years later was modest, but beautiful. Amanda designed every element herself, transforming our local community center into something that looked like it belonged in a magazine. Derek's family seemed nice enough, though I noticed Judy had strong opinions about everything from the floral arrangements to the catering. "Just smile through it," Amanda whispered when she caught me frowning at one of Judy's remarks about the interesting choice of wedding cake. "It makes Derek happy when everyone gets along." The newlyweds rented a small apartment, and for the first few years, everything seemed perfect. Amanda found work with a small design firm, while Derek took a position at a local bank. They traveled on weekends, hosted dinner parties, and seemed to genuinely enjoy building their life together. Meanwhile, my investments had performed beyond my expectations. By the time I was 55, I realized I had enough to do something I'd been dreaming about since the day Amanda was born. I could buy her a home. Not just any home, but the kind of place where she could put down roots, maybe raise children of her own one day. I spent 6 months searching for the perfect house. It needed to be in a good neighborhood with excellent schools. It needed to have enough space for Amanda to grow into, and maybe even set up a home office if she ever decided to strike out on her own as a designer. Most importantly, it needed to have character, something Amanda could put her creative touch on without starting from scratch. I found it in early spring, a 2-story colonial in a peaceful suburb 30 minutes outside the city. 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a spacious kitchen that opened into a family room, and a backyard with mature oak trees. The previous owners had maintained it well, but the interior was dated enough that Amanda could make it truly her own. Working with my lawyer, I arranged to purchase the house outright and transfer ownership to Amanda alone. It was important to me that this be her security, her foundation. The lawyer advised me that by putting it solely in Amanda's name, it would remain her separate property, even in marriage, protecting her future regardless of what might happen. I thought of it as insurance. Not that I distrusted Derek, but because a mother always wants her child to be secure. "Are you sure about this, Ms. Peterson?" my lawyer had asked. "That's a significant asset to give away." "I'm not giving it away," I replied. "I'm investing in my daughter's happiness. There's no better return than that." The day I surprised Amanda with the house keys was sunny and perfect. I had told her and Derek that I wanted to look at an investment property and needed their opinion. Amanda, always eager to help with design advice, agreed immediately. When we pulled up to the beautiful colonial with its freshly painted shutters and flowering cherry trees in the front yard, Amanda gasped. "Mom, this place is gorgeous. Are you really thinking of buying this?" I smiled, reaching into my purse for the small gift box containing the house keys wrapped with a simple blue ribbon. "I already bought it," I said, handing her the box, "but not as an investment property." She looked confused as she untied the ribbon and opened the box. When she saw the keys, her eyebrows furrowed. "I don't understand." "It's yours, sweetheart. All yours. Your home." The moment of realization dawning on her face is something I will never forget. Her eyes widened, then filled with tears. She looked from me to the house and back again, her mouth opening and closing without forming words. "You bought me a house," she finally whispered. "An entire house." Derek, who had been quietly taking in the scene, suddenly stepped forward. "Wait, seriously, Blanche. You bought this for us. The whole thing is paid for." There was something in his tone that gave me pause, not just surprise, but a calculating edge I hadn't heard from him before. "I bought it for Amanda," I clarified gently. "It's my gift to her." "So whose name is on the deed?" Derek pressed, putting his arm around Amanda, who was still staring at the house in disbelief. "Amanda's," I said simply. "I wanted to make sure she always has security." A flicker of something, disappointment, annoyance, crossed Derek's face, but it was gone so quickly I thought I might have imagined it. "That's incredibly generous," he said, his smile returning. "Thank you, Blanche." Amanda finally broke from her trance and threw her arms around me, sobbing with joy. "Mom, I can't believe you did this. It's too much. How did you even afford it?" "I've been saving for this moment since you were born," I told her, holding her tight. "And every sacrifice was worth it to see your face right now." We spent the afternoon exploring the house with Amanda running from room to room like an excited child. She was already planning color schemes and furniture arrangements, her designer's mind working overtime. "The primary bedroom gets perfect morning light," she gushed. "And this kitchen. Mom, it's exactly what I would have picked." I had arranged for a small housewarming party that evening. Just a few close friends, some champagne and catered appetizers. Everything was going beautifully until Derek's family arrived. They came all at once. Frank and Judy pulling into the driveway in their luxury SUV, followed minutes later by Scott and his wife Tanya with their 2 young children. They hadn't been invited, at least not by me, but Derek greeted them as if they were expected. Frank walked through the front door and immediately began assessing everything with a critical eye. "Nice place," he said, though his tone suggested he'd seen better. "What did something like this set you back, Blanche?" Before I could respond, Judy was commenting on the outdated kitchen and how everything would need to be gutted, of course. Amanda, ever the peacemaker, rushed to offer them drinks and show them around. I noticed Derek huddled in a corner with his father and brother, speaking in low tones while casting glances around the property. The children, a boy and a girl around 6 and 8, tore through the house, screaming and touching everything, despite Tanya's half-hearted attempts to control them. "Kids will be kids." She shrugged when I winced at the sound of something breaking in another room. By the end of the evening, what should have been a joyful celebration felt tainted. Amanda was still floating on cloud 9, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The way Derek's family had surveyed the house felt less like admiration and more like assessment. There had been too many whispered conversations, too many calculating looks. "They're just excited for us," Amanda assured me when I mentioned it as I was leaving. "They've never had anyone in the family own a house this nice." I smiled and nodded, not wanting to dampen her happiness. But as I drove home, couldn't help feeling that I had just witnessed the first clouds gathering before a storm. 2 weeks passed before I had a chance to visit Amanda again. I'd been busy with work and wanted to give the young couple time to settle in. I called ahead that morning to let Amanda know I was coming by with some housewarming gifts. A beautiful set of wine glasses I'd found at an artisan shop, and some high-end kitchen tools I knew she'd appreciate. "That sounds great, Mom," Amanda said, though I detected a strain in her voice I hadn't heard before. "Around 3 would be perfect." When I arrived at exactly 3, I was surprised to see the driveway filled with cars. I recognized Frank and Judy's SUV, as well as a minivan I assumed belonged to Scott and Tanya. There was barely room for me to park on the street. Letting myself in with the spare key Amanda had given me, I called out a greeting, but was met with only the sound of a blaring television and children arguing somewhere upstairs. I made my way toward the noise in the kitchen, where I found Amanda, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, stirring something on the stove while consulting a recipe on her phone. "Amanda," I said, setting down my gifts on the counter. She turned, and the look of exhaustion on her face alarmed me. There were dark circles under her eyes, and she seemed to have lost weight in just 2 weeks. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I meant to have everything more organized before you got here." She wiped her hands on a dish towel and gave me a quick hug that felt more like obligation than affection. "What's going on? Why are all these cars here?" I asked, gesturing toward the window. Amanda's smile faltered. "Oh, Derek's family is staying with us for a little while. They're having some work done on their house, and it made sense for them to be here since we have the space." Before I could respond, Judy Thompson appeared in the doorway, dressed in an expensive loungewear set and holding an empty coffee mug. "Amanda, dear, is there any more of that special coffee left, the one you ground fresh this morning?" Her eyes fell on me, and her smile tightened. "Oh, Blanche, we didn't know you were coming." "I told everyone this morning," Amanda said quietly. Judy shrugged. "Well, I hope you don't mind a full house. Frank and I have taken the primary bedroom. It has that lovely ensuite bathroom, you know. Scott and Tanya are in the guest room, and the children are using what would have been the office. So cozy, with all of us together." I stared at her, trying to process what she was saying. They had taken over the primary bedroom, Amanda and Derek's bedroom. "Where are you sleeping?" I asked my daughter directly. "We're in the basement for now," Amanda replied, not meeting my eyes. "We fixed it up with the air mattress. It's fine, really." "Fine? You're sleeping in the basement of your own home while your in-laws take your bedroom. It's temporary," Amanda insisted, though her voice lacked conviction. "And the basement is actually quite comfortable." Judy cleared her throat. "Amanda, the coffee." "Right away," my daughter said, immediately moving to prepare a fresh pot. I followed Amanda around the kitchen as she worked, noting how she seemed to know exactly where everyone liked their things, suggesting this arrangement wasn't as new as she was implying. "How long have they been here?" I asked quietly when Judy had left. "About 10 days," Amanda admitted. "They needed somewhere to stay while their kitchen and main bathroom are being renovated." "And how long is the renovation supposed to take?" Amanda busied herself with measuring coffee beans. 6 to 8 weeks, they think. Maybe a bit longer." 6 to 8 weeks, Amanda. That's not a visit that's moving in. And where is Derek in all this? As if summoned by his name, Derek appeared in the kitchen. He was dressed in sweatpants and a t-shirt, looking relaxed and well-rested, a stark contrast to my daughter. "Blanche, good to see you," he said, giving me a brief hug before opening the refrigerator and pulling out a beer. "Dad and I are watching the game. Amanda, did you put out those special chips my mom likes? She's asking for them." "I'll bring them right out," Amanda replied. "And maybe some of that dip you made yesterday. The kids are getting hungry too." He cracked open the beer and headed back toward the living room without waiting for a response. I waited until he was out of earshot before turning to Amanda. "Sweetheart, what's going on here? This doesn't seem right." "It's fine, Mom," she insisted, though her voice wavered. "They're family, and they've had some financial setbacks lately. The renovation is just part of it. They're actually thinking of selling their house after the work is done." The pieces suddenly clicked into place. "Selling their house, Amanda? Are they planning to move in here permanently?" No, she said quickly but without conviction. "They're just exploring options. The housing market is good right now, and they think they could get a nice price for their place after the updates." "And where would they go after selling?" Amanda didn't answer, instead focusing intently on arranging crackers on a plate. I spent the next hour observing the dynamics in the house, and everything I saw concerned me. Frank and Derek dominated the living room loudly, commenting on the game while Amanda served them snacks. Judy criticized everything from the temperature of her coffee to the way Amanda had organized the pantry. Scott and Tanya were nowhere to be seen, but their children rampaged through the house unchecked, leaving messes that Amanda quietly cleaned up. When I tried to help, Judy made a comment about how some people just don't know how to properly load a dishwasher, and took over rearranging everything Amanda and I had done. As I prepared to leave, I pulled Amanda aside near the front door. "This isn't right," I told her firmly. "This is your house. You shouldn't be sleeping in the basement and waiting on everyone hand and foot." "They're just going through a rough time," Amanda said, though she didn't meet my eyes. "Derek says we need to support family." "And what about your needs? Does Derek support you?" A flash of something. Hurt recognition, doubt, crossed Amanda's face, but she quickly composed herself. "He's caught in the middle. It's hard for him too." As I drove home, I couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had shifted. The Amanda I knew was still there, but diminished somehow. Her natural brightness dimmed. And Derek, the charming, considerate young man I thought I knew, had transformed into someone I barely recognized. What troubled me most was the calculation I sensed behind it all. This didn't feel like a temporary arrangement born of necessity. It felt like a takeover. The next 3 months were some of the most difficult of my life since losing John. I watched helplessly as Amanda became more withdrawn, more exhausted, and less like herself with each passing week. Our phone conversations, once lengthy and filled with laughter, became brief and guarded. Often she would speak in whispers, explaining that everyone is taking a nap or the TV is too loud in the background. Twice, our calls were interrupted by Judy calling for Amanda to come help with something urgently. "Can't you tell her you're on the phone?" I asked the second time this happened. "It's just easier if I go," Amanda said. "I'll call you back." She didn't. The few times I visited, I was treated like an unwelcome intruder. Derek would make a show of checking his watch when I arrived, subtly indicating that my presence was an imposition on their time. Judy would make pointed remarks about how some people don't understand family boundaries. Frank largely ignored me except to ask if I'd seen what the stock market was doing, as if my financial knowledge was the only thing of value I could offer. The transformation of the house itself was equally disturbing. What had once been a blank canvas for Amanda's design dreams was now cluttered with Judy's outdated furniture pieces, Frank's oversized recliner dominating the living room, and toys scattered everywhere. The walls remained the same neutral beige the previous owners had chosen. Amanda's plans for a soft blue in the living room and a sunny yellow in the kitchen abandoned. When I asked about it, she shrugged tiredly. Judy thinks it's better to wait before making any permanent changes. She says beige is more marketable. Marketable? You're not selling the house, Amanda. Of course not, she said quickly. It's just a consideration for the future. The most alarming changes, though, were in Amanda herself. My vibrant creative daughter now moved like a shadow through her own home, constantly on alert for the next demand. Her clothes hung loosely on her frame, and she had developed a nervous habit of checking her phone every few minutes. "Are you eating properly?" I asked during one visit, noticing how she picked at her food while ensuring everyone else's plates were full. "I'm fine, Mom," she said with that same forced smile I'd grown to hate. "Just busy." In private moments, I tried to understand what was happening with Derek's family. Frank had apparently made some poor investment decisions that had left them temporarily cash-strapped, according to Amanda. Scott had lost his job months ago and was between opportunities while his wife Tanya claimed to be too busy with the children to work. "But they're not contributing anything to the household," I pressed. "Derek says it's complicated," Amanda replied, her standard answer for everything these days. One particularly concerning visit, I arrived to find Frank supervising a crew digging up the backyard. The beautiful garden space was now a muddy pit with the beginnings of what looked like a pool installation. "Isn't it exciting?" Judy said when she noticed my expression. "Frank always wanted a pool. The grandkids will love it." "Did Amanda approve this?" I asked, knowing full well the answer. "Oh, we don't bother her with these decisions," Judy waved dismissively. "She's so busy with the household management. Besides improvements like this, add value." When I finally got Amanda alone, she confirmed she hadn't been consulted about the pool. "Derek said it was a surprise for me, but—" She trailed off, looking out at the destruction of what had been a peaceful garden retreat. "Amanda, this has to stop," I said firmly. "They can't just take over your home like this." "What am I supposed to do, Mom?" She snapped, a rare display of emotion breaking through her careful facade. "Throw my husband's family out on the street. Derek would never forgive me." "And what about you? Can you forgive yourself for disappearing inside your own life?" She didn't have an answer for that, and minutes later Judy called her away to help prepare lunch for the pool contractors. The final straw came during a phone call late one evening. Amanda was crying so hard I could barely understand her. "She said I was ungrateful," Amanda sobbed. "All I did was ask if they had a timeline for the pool completion because I wanted to plan a small dinner party next month." "Who said you were ungrateful, Judy?" "Yes, she said I was selfish for wanting to show off to my friends when family should come first. She said I didn't deserve such a beautiful home if I wasn't willing to share it properly." "And what did Derek say?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "He said I should apologize to his mother for upsetting her." I took a deep breath, controlling the anger that threatened to boil over. "Amanda, where are you right now?" "In my car. I needed some air." "Stay there. I'm coming over." "No, Mom. It's late. You don't have to—" "I'm coming over," I repeated, already grabbing my keys. "And Amanda, this ends tonight." I drove through the darkness with a singular focus, rehearsing what needed to be said. The situation had gone beyond ridiculous to dangerous. My daughter was being systematically erased from her own life, and I had allowed it to continue for too long. When I pulled up to the house, all the lights were blazing despite the late hour. I found Amanda sitting on the front steps, hugging her knees to her chest, like she used to do as a little girl after a nightmare. "They're all still up," she said as I sat beside her. Derek told them I overreacted. You didn't overreact, I said firmly. If anything, you've underreacted for months. The front door opened and Derek stood framed in the light arms crossed over his chest. Amanda, you need to come inside, he said, not acknowledging my presence. You're embarrassing the family. I'm staying right here with my mom, Amanda replied, a small but significant act of defiance. Derek's expression hardened. Fine, have your little tantrum. He turned to go back inside, then noticed me standing up. Blanche, it's late. This isn't a good time for a visit. I disagree, I said, moving past him into the house. This is exactly the right time. The living room looked like a war room. Frank, Judy, Scott, and Tanya were arranged on various pieces of furniture, all with expressions ranging from annoyance to outright hostility. Well, the cavalry has arrived, Frank said with a sarcastic edge, here to rescue poor Amanda from her terrible family. Judy stood smoothing her robe. Blanche, I understand you're concerned, but this is really a private family matter. Amanda is my family, I replied evenly, and this is her house. It's Derek's house, too, Scott interjected. And family helps family. Is that what you think you're doing? I asked, looking around at all of them. Helping? Amanda had followed me inside and stood quietly near the door, Derek hovering nearby with a thunderous expression. We've been nothing but generous, Judy declared. We've shared our wisdom, our experience. We've helped make this house a real home. By taking over this primary bedroom, by making decisions about major renovations without consulting Amanda, by treating her like a servant in her own home. That's not fair. Derek stepped forward. My parents needed the larger bedroom because of my father's back problems. The renovations are an investment in our future, and Amanda is not a servant. She's a homemaker. A homemaker? I repeated incredulously. She works full-time at her design firm, or at least she did until she started spending every waking moment catering to all of you. Some sacrifices are necessary for family, Frank pronounced solemnly. Something you wouldn't understand, Blanche, with your corporate mindset. I felt my temper rising, but forced myself to remain calm. What I understand is that you've taken advantage of my daughter's kindness. What I'd like to know is why. We haven't taken advantage of anyone, Judy insisted. We're simply helping Derek and Amanda establish a proper family home, one that will accommodate all of us comfortably. All of you. I looked from face to face. Define all of you. There was an uncomfortable silence before Frank cleared his throat. Well, obviously, once we sell our place, we'll need somewhere to stay permanently. The housing market is too volatile right now to buy again immediately. And Scott and Tanya's lease is up next month, Derek added. It makes sense for them to move in here too, just until they find something affordable. I turned to look at Amanda, whose face had gone completely white. Did you know about this plan? She shook her head slowly. They said it was temporary, just until the renovations were done. It is temporary, Derek insisted, though he wouldn't meet Amanda's eyes. Just a longer temporary than we initially discussed. How much longer? I pressed. Judy made a dismissive gesture. These things can't be rushed. The important thing is that we're all together as a family should be. A family where Amanda sleeps in the basement, does all the cooking and cleaning, and has no say in what happens in her own home. She should be grateful. Judy suddenly snapped her polite veneer, cracking. Do you know how many young couples struggle to own a home these days? Amanda has been handed everything on a silver platter. The least she can do is share her good fortune with her real family. The room went silent. Even Frank looked uncomfortable with how baldly Judy had stated their position. Her real family, I repeated quietly. Yes. Judy continued, apparently unable to stop now that she had started. Not just her mother, who thinks throwing money at her makes up for whatever else was lacking. A real family with traditions and history and proper values. Derek stepped forward, placing a hand on his mother's arm. Mom, that's enough. But something had shifted in the room. Amanda was no longer cowering by the door. She was standing straight, a flush of anger coloring her cheeks. Is that what you think? She asked, looking directly at Derek. That I don't deserve this house, that I should be grateful to be allowed to live in the basement and serve your family. Derek looked trapped. He glanced at his parents, then back at Amanda. That's not... I just think we need to support my family through this rough patch. They've done so much for me. And what about me? What about what I've done for you? What about what my mother did for us? Oh, please, Frank interjected. Your mother bought a house. Let's not pretend it was some great sacrifice. She probably just needed a tax write-off. I had remained calm until this point, but something inside me snapped. Not for myself. I didn't care what Frank thought of my motives, but for Amanda, who deserved so much better than this. I think we've heard enough, I said, reaching into my purse for my phone. Amanda, would you like these people to leave your house? Before she could answer, Derek stepped forward. This is my house too, and I say they stay. Actually, I said calmly, this isn't your house at all, Derek. The room went completely still. 5 pairs of eyes stared at me in confusion. What are you talking about? Derek finally asked. Of course it's my house. I'm Amanda's husband. Being Amanda's husband doesn't automatically make you a property owner, I said, opening the camera app on my phone and switching it to video. Would you mind repeating what you just said for clarity? Derek looked confused but repeated confidently, This is my house. I have every right to invite my family to live here. And you all agree with that assessment? I asked, panning the camera to include the others. Of course, Frank said, puffing up his chest. Derek is the man of the house. The property belongs to both of them. Exactly. Judy nodded vigorously. What's hers is his. That's how marriage works. I stopped the recording and smiled for the first time that evening. Thank you for making your position so clear. Now I'd like to share something with all of you. I pulled a folded document from my purse, a copy of the property deed I had brought with me just in case. Before I gifted this house to Amanda, I consulted with one of the top real estate attorneys in the state. On his advice, I took very specific steps in how the property was titled. Derek frowned, reaching for the document, but I held it just out of reach. The house was deeded to Amanda Peterson, not Amanda Thompson, and certainly not to Derek Thompson. It was transferred to her as her sole and separate property, with explicit language stating that it was not intended to be marital property, regardless of its use as a family residence. I looked directly at Derek. In simple terms, this house belongs to Amanda, not to you, not to your family, just to Amanda. That can't be legal, Frank blustered. They're married. I assure you it's completely legal, I replied. The attorney made certain of it. In this state, gifts given to one spouse individually remain their separate property unless they're explicitly transmuted into marital property. Amanda never signed anything converting this house to joint property. Derek's face had gone from confused to angry. You deliberately kept me off the deed. Why would you do that? I wanted to ensure Amanda always had security and independence, I said simply. As it turns out, that was an excellent decision. I turned to Amanda, who was looking at me with a mixture of shock and dawning realization. The house is yours, sweetheart, legally and completely yours. You get to decide who lives here and who doesn't. This is ridiculous, Judy spat. We're family. You can't just throw family out on the street. Actually, she can, I countered. And if you don't leave willingly, we can call the police to report trespassers in Amanda's home. You wouldn't dare, Frank growled. I held up my phone. I have your statements on video claiming ownership of a property that isn't yours. I have documentation proving Amanda's sole ownership, and I have the number of the police station on speed dial. Would you like to test how serious I am? The room erupted into chaos. Scott and Tanya slipped out quietly, heading upstairs, presumably to check on their children. Frank and Judy began shouting about ingratitude and family loyalty. Derek alternated between trying to calm his parents and shooting accusatory glances at Amanda and me. Through it all, Amanda remained silent, watching the scene unfold, as if seeing these people clearly for the first time. Finally, she stepped into the center of the room and spoke, her voice quiet but firm. "I'd like everyone to leave." The room fell silent again. "What did you say?" Derek asked incredulously. "I'd like everyone to leave," Amanda repeated louder this time. "Not forever necessarily, but I need time to think, and I can't do that with all of you here." "You can't be serious," Derek said. "These are my parents, my family." "And I'm your wife," Amanda replied. "Or at least I thought I was, but wives aren't supposed to sleep in basements while their in-laws take over their bedrooms. Wives aren't supposed to be servants, and husbands aren't supposed to stand by while their families treat their wives like they don't matter." Derek looked stricken. "Amanda, you know I love you. This has all just gotten a little out of hand." "A little," Amanda laughed a sound, without humor. "Derek, you were planning to move your entire family into my house permanently without even discussing it with me. You watched while I cooked and cleaned for everyone without lifting a finger to help. You said nothing when your mother criticized everything about me, from my cooking to my appearance." She took a deep breath. "So, yes, I need everyone to leave. Now, tonight. I need to figure out if there's anything left of my marriage to save." Derek's expression hardened. "If you make my family leave, you're choosing your mother over me." "No," Amanda said sadly. "If you make me choose, you're the one forcing the decision, and you're choosing your family over me." For a moment I thought Derek might see reason. There was a flicker of the young man I had once respected, a brief hesitation that suggested he recognized the gravity of the moment. Then Judy stepped forward, placing her hand on his arm. "Derek, we're your blood. We've always been there for you. Don't let her manipulate you like this." Derek straightened his shoulders. "If they go, I go too." Amanda nodded slowly, tears filling her eyes but not falling. "Then I guess you should pack." The next 48 hours were a whirlwind of anger, tears, and logistics. Frank and Judy left that night, taking only what they needed for a hotel stay and making a grand show of their martyrdom. Scott, Tanya, and their children followed the next morning, Scott muttering about legal advice and community property laws as they loaded their minivan. Derek stayed the longest, alternating between apologizing profusely and making thinly veiled threats about what would happen if Amanda didn't come to her senses. By the second afternoon, when it became clear that Amanda wasn't backing down, his true colors showed completely. "You'll regret this," he said as he loaded the last of his clothes into his car. "You think you can manage this big house on your own? You think you can afford the taxes, the insurance, the maintenance? You need me more than I need you." "I managed just fine before I met you," Amanda replied with a calm I knew was costing her dearly to maintain. "And I'll manage again." After he drove away, Amanda walked slowly back into the empty house and collapsed on the sofa. I sat beside her, saying nothing, just letting her process the enormity of what had happened. "I feel so stupid," she finally said. "How did I not see what was happening?" "Because you loved him and you trusted him," I replied. "There's nothing stupid about that." "They were never going to leave, were they? This was always the plan." "I think so," I admitted. "They saw an opportunity and took it." She looked around at the house, cluttered with the debris of the Thompson family's occupation, but now quiet and still. "What do I do now?" "First we change the locks," I said practically. "Then we take it one day at a time." The early days were the hardest. Despite the clarity of her decision, Amanda grieved deeply for the marriage she thought she had and the husband she believed she knew. There were moments when she questioned everything, when the weight of failure threatened to crush her spirit. "Maybe I could have tried harder," she said one evening as we sorted through the primary bedroom, reclaiming it from Frank and Judy's presence. "Maybe if I'd been more patient." "Amanda," I said gently, "you slept in a basement for 3 months while serving a family that treated you like hired help. I don't think patience was the issue." 2 weeks after the confrontation, Derek returned with a different approach. Flower's apologies, promises that things would be different. "My parents were out of line. I see that now. But we can start fresh, just the two of us." Amanda wavered the pull of forgiveness and reconciliation, almost overwhelming her resolve. "Ask him where his parents are staying now," I suggested when she called me that night, torn about what to do. The answer revealed everything. They were staying with Derek in the small apartment he had rented, just temporarily until they sorted out their finances. So nothing has changed, Amanda realized. He still puts them first. She filed for divorce the next day, citing irreconcilable differences. The proceedings were surprisingly straightforward, as the house was indisputably her separate property. Derek attempted to claim that his contributions to the household entitled him to a portion of its value, but without his name on the deed, and with less than a year of residence, his case was weak. In the 6 months that followed, I watched my daughter rebuild herself piece by piece. She started by reclaiming her space, repainting the walls the colors she had originally chosen, replacing furniture that carried too many negative memories, and turning the half-finished pool pit in the backyard into a beautiful terraced garden. She reconnected with friends who had fallen by the wayside during her marriage, rediscovered her passion for design, and eventually secured a new position with a prestigious firm that valued her talent and vision. There were still difficult days, still moments of doubt and pain. The dream of the life she had imagined with Derek, children running through the house growing old together, had died, and that loss required its own grieving process. "I keep wondering if I'll ever trust anyone enough to try again," she confided one evening as we sat in her newly designed living room, sipping wine and watching the sunset through windows no longer covered by the heavy drapes Judy had insisted upon. "You might," I said, "but next time you'll know what to look for and what to avoid." "I'll know to pay attention when someone shows me who they really are," she agreed. "Derek showed me many times. I just didn't want to see it." "What was the moment you knew it was over?" I asked, curious about what had finally broken through her determination to make the marriage work. She thought for a long moment. "It wasn't when you showed us the deed, though, that was the catalyst. It was when he said, 'If they go, I go too.' In that moment, I realized I had never been his priority. I was just convenient, a way to get what he and his family wanted. And now," I gestured around at the beautiful home she had reclaimed and reimagined. Amanda smiled a genuine smile that reached her eyes, something I hadn't seen in far too long. "Now I know that I don't need to be anyone's priority but my own. Everything else is a choice, not a necessity." She reached over and squeezed my hand. "Thank you, Mom. Not just for the house, but for seeing what I couldn't see, for being brave when I wasn't ready to be." "You were always brave," I told her. "You just needed a reminder." As the evening deepened into night, we talked about her plans for the future. A small design business of her own, someday perhaps travel to the places she had always wanted to see, maybe even opening her home to foster children who needed stability and love. "The funny thing is," she said as I prepared to leave, "I have more freedom now than I ever did with Derek. He said I couldn't manage without him, but I'm doing better in every way." Standing on the porch looking back at my daughter framed in the doorway of the home that was truly hers, now I felt a profound sense of peace. The gift I had given her wasn't just the house itself, but the foundation for her to discover her own strength, to build a life on her own terms. Sometimes I told her losing someone you thought you needed is the only way to find out how strong you really are. She nodded understanding in her eyes. And sometimes the people who truly love you are the ones who help you stand on your own, not the ones who try to make you dependent. As I drove home that night, I thought about how our greatest gifts to those we love might not be the material things we provide, but the belief in their capacity to thrive independently. Amanda had emerged from her ordeal not just intact, but stronger, wiser, and more authentically herself than ever before. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision that ultimately led to unexpected freedom? Share your experience in the comments below, and if you found Amanda's journey meaningful, please like this video and subscribe to hear more stories about finding strength in challenging circumstances. Remember, sometimes the hardest choices lead to the most beautiful beginnings. Thank you for listening, and may you always find the courage to stand up for yourself when it matters most.